Cost of living in California is 50% higher than the national average. While bulk of it is in housing, utilities as well as transportation and gas cost a lot more in California. Some people say this is sunshine tax that California has. Others are saying this is policy related. Our guest today is California Assemblymember Corey Jackson, who's been thinking about cost of living, and he's here to tell us if the state is shifting its policies towards cost of living and cutting down some of its environmental rules to ensure that cost of living doesn't go higher.
We should make sure that we're only doing what is necessary to protect people, protect people's information, protect people's mental health, protect people's physical health as well. Anything outside of that, we need to be very cautious right now.
I'm Siyamak Khorrami. Welcome to California Insider. Corey, it's great to have you back on. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
We want to talk to you about cost of living in California.
Yeah.
The cost of living, according to some estimates, is almost 40% higher than the rest of the states here in California. 16.9% of people are in poverty, and there's another 30-something% of people that are close to poverty. What's happening with cost of living?
Well, the number one driver of cost of living, of course, is housing. Housing is becoming more and more expensive. Even in the Inland Empire where I represent, that used to be the place where you go for more bang for your buck when it comes to housing. But even in those type of regions, those are beginning to become more and more out of reach. So an accumulation of housing being too expensive to build, which means it makes the housing more expensive to be able to purchase. Because a lower stock in terms of housing when it comes to rentals, of course, rentals are going up as well. Those begin to be the number one drivers of where people are spending more than 50% of their entire income on housing alone. And that's simply just not sustainable. And then, of course, we know that it's costing more money to generate energy. So electricity bills are going up. Fires are happening more frequently. So now insurance rates are going up. So if you have a car, if you have a home, and anything else you're trying to insure, those rates are going up. So what we're seeing is a perfect storm that we have to be able to find ways to turn in the opposite direction.
And there is gasoline too, right? And you just joined the board of CARB, right? And what's going on there? Some people say that California's policies are causing some of these cost of living increases.
There's no doubt that California policies are affecting cost of living, no doubt about it. When it comes to gas, we're trying to balance two things. How do we create the best type of fuel that will not be harmful to air quality? Which means that, of course, in California, we have two types of blends when it comes to gasoline. We have our winter gasoline and our summer gasoline. And for gas companies to have to create two types, of course, is more costly. And so we just have to try to figure out what that balance is. I think the most important part to recognize is that overall, Californians are for cleaning up the environment. Even when it may cost more, but once it starts getting to a tipping point when it's really hurting the wallet, it can actually create an adverse effect when it comes to support for climate change and other things. And so the legislature right now is trying to have that balancing act right now. And we're hyper-focused on making sure that we are not making it harder for people in their pocketbooks.
What was it like for you to get involved with CARB?
Well, as I was just appointed by the speaker to CARB a few months ago, and I really requested it because I come from a region where poor air quality is the number one environmental issue. We have a huge logistics profile when it comes to our region, which means we have a whole lot of trucks going in and out of our region because of the goods movement, which means we have some of the worst air quality in the entire nation. And so it was important for me to be on CARB because, number one, I don't come from a very large urban area. And so it's a nice mix of suburban, urban, rural area so that I have more of a balanced approach. There's no doubt it's a huge learning curve. When you talk about all the various emissions, what is the appropriate policy? Is it a balanced policy? Or what are some possible unintended consequences as well? So my number one job is to ask a lot of questions, be the devil's advocate, and making sure that I improve the relationship between CARB and the legislature.
For some time, the CARB hasn't really thought about the cost of living in their initiatives, right? Because they were mandated to just go after pollution and air quality, but they mentioned they weren't considering that, right?
The legislature has given it a very, very strong mandate and a very stringent timeline to be able to lower emissions by a certain time. And because of that, technically CARB is following the law. They're doing what the legislature has asked them to do. It is now time for the legislature to make a decision. Is our timeline realistic now that we have more data and we have more understanding of what some of the unintended consequences are? And I believe there's a growing number of members of the legislature who believe there's no doubt we need to continue to lower emissions. But the question becomes, is there a way to lower the regulatory pressure while still having a slow downward trend?
Do you think it's possible to go back and change those dates and timelines?
Absolutely. It's definitely possible. And I'm actually thinking about next year introducing a bill to do that.
And now you mentioned housing. There's a lot of effort from the state to develop housing. There's a lot of talk and there's a lot of laws, like from the ADUs to all sorts of housing. And some people have told us this hasn't created a lot of affordable housing. What are your thoughts on that?
It hasn't, and California is not doing enough. There is no doubt that we are trying to loosen the regulatory environment so that we can make it easier and cheaper to build housing. One thing we're missing, though, is that we still have not stepped up to the plate to provide the funding necessary to supercharge affordable housing being built. And which is why I have legislation like Constitutional Amendment 4 that says we should be dedicating a percentage of our budget towards affordable housing. It's our number one and deepest crisis in California. And if we're not spending $5 to $8 billion a year to be able to ramp up affordable housing stock, then we're not solving the problem.
The housing that's getting created right now is market rate housing, right?
The overwhelming majority of it is market rate. We do have some affordable housing, but it's not, it'll take 20, 30, 40 years to be able to get our way out of at the pace we're doing now. We got to do more. If we need big things to be done, California has to step up and provide the support, the funding, and the regulatory framework to make it happen, to really solve the problem as quick as possible.
So we have been told by some of our guests that we had these redevelopment agencies and they were working pretty well, but they were taken away because of budget issues. But some others said that people were using these redevelopment agencies that actually to benefit from them. Are your thoughts that this should come back or something similar to that should come back to build housing in California?
In hindsight, it turns out that it was a mistake to eliminate redevelopment agencies. There's no doubt. I mean, name any industry, name any department, there's always bad actors. The question shouldn't have been whether these should exist or not. It should be what type of boundaries, what type of measures, quality control measures we should be doing to making sure that we weed out the bad acts that were going on. It turns out that we would have loved to have redevelopment agencies by now. because it would have been a way for communities on their own to build their own affordable housing.
You mentioned communities on their own. A lot of city leaders and cities and even people in the community are worried that the state is taking over their whole city by their policies, like kind of they're losing control of their housing.
They're right. We're taking away a lot of local control rights in order to make sure that California has the housing stock that's necessary. When we talk about bad actors, there's a lot of city planning was not being done in good faith. What do I mean by that? That means that if I am a higher end city, I'm not going to allow affordable housing to be built in the city. I'm only going to allow larger, more expensive homes to be built. But what does that do to the rest of Californians? Someone has to bear that brunt. So our California policies are simple. Everyone has to do their part. Everyone has to build a certain amount of affordable housing and other types of housing to make sure that people can still live in California. It still remains to be seen how well the process is gone, but we have seen a lot of good projects being up. But there was a lot of ideology involved when it came to what type of housing that will bring what type of people, right? So a lot of discriminatory thinking was in some of our planning processes throughout the state.
What are you guys' thoughts on single-family homes? A lot of people are worried that this single-family housing is gone now because we have the ADU law and SB 9. And what are your thoughts on that?
I believe there's still a place for single-family homes. There was a point maybe a year or two ago where we just said we need affordable housing. And when people heard affordable housing, they immediately just thought about rentals. But we forget that part of the California dream is to own your own home. So we need housing stock for people to be able to purchase their own home so that they can be able to get into the cycle of generational wealth. And so single family homes is still a part of the process. Now, the question becomes, how large should your front and backyard be though? How large we need to make sure that we are not taking up so much space because we have limited space available. And it's a drain on other resources as well. For instance, I live in a single family home, but it almost looks like townhomes, right? There is no front yard, there's no backyard, there's just a concrete slab in the back. Now, it just so happens that I love that because I don't want to go home and have to start doing a lot of maintenance work. But at the end of the day, there's a way to do single family homes without taking up so much space. And then, of course, preferences are changing. We need to think about more condos as well, right? We need to think about more type townhomes. And so all that to say is we need a little bit of everything, but we should make sure that we're also doubling down on affordable housing so that we can drive down prices overall.
Now, in terms of the construction code and the building,
Yeah.
there's a lot of rules inside buildings. And we've been told by developers and other housing experts that because of these regulatory rules, like you need to have a solar panel, you need to have different kinds of environmental rules inside a home, it's driving the costs high for development. And we are hearing about these projects that $1 million unit that are built where the land was even donated to them. What are your thoughts on that?
I think needs to be a balanced approach when it comes to that. I mean, obviously we had a lot of weatherization requirements to make sure that, your home can retain heat or retain a cooler atmosphere for a longer period of time. So you don't need to use
air conditioning.
Exactly. I think that that's a good thing overall because then you can save more on your utilities. But I think that we just have to be more cautious now when we talk about new regulations. We have to be more cautious now. There's more of a solar discussion happening now in terms of Should we be forcing all homes to have solar? And which means that if I want a new home, I have to either lease the solar unit for the rest of my life, or I have to purchase it, which is exorbitant, and it can't be included in your mortgage. And so I think we have to revisit everything. I think everything is on the table right now. We have got to move heaven and earth to meet our housing needs in California, not just for now. If we don't solve it now, it'll be impossible for the next generation to be able to live in California.
Now, in terms of cost of living, you and your colleagues, which you're part of the Democratic Party, you guys have the majority. Are you guys looking at each component, like from utilities to gasoline to housing? Are you guys going in and saying what you can do to cut the cost if there is a way?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we are trying to find ways that we can help people bring down their utility cost. We're trying to find out ways to make sure we find the right balance between, how do we balance the need of holding fossil fuel companies accountable, but still making sure that gasoline is affordable and we don't have to rely too much just on importing it. There's no doubt we have a goal of phasing out fossil fuel. Again, it just so happens that we need to slow it down because technology is not moving fast enough to be able to make that transition reasonable or even feasible anytime soon. So we just have to course correct. I believe in the scientific method. You keep trying things, and when the data says you're going in the wrong direction, you course correct, right? But everything was done with good intentions. We just have to now make sure that they're realistic.
Is it hard to make these changes? Is there a political pressure or pressure from the parties that are benefiting from industries? Is it hard to make these adjustments and go back and change these laws?
Well, this is California. There's pressure to do everything. And so I think that there's absolutely right. But to meet the moment, it comes to every decade or so, it comes to those members of the legislature to say, what do we need to do? What hard decisions do we need to make? And understand no matter what decision you make, it's going to make someone angry. And so there's the back and forth between those who are champions of the environment, those who are champions of business, those who are champions of, alternative energy and traditional energy as well. We have got to do a better job of doing our own homework, think about what the vision of California is, and make the right decisions, even though we know no matter what decision we make, it's going to even upset our friends.
Sometimes these conversations become too heated and respect goes out the door. Is there a way for Californians to be able to bring that back into this dialogue?
I think there is. I think that there's no doubt that our rhetoric has gotten really, really high, really, really heated. And we have got to continue to find ways to have reasonable discussions, hard discussions, but still doing it in a way that's not demonizing someone and that is not making people believe that someone has ill intentions. But it takes focus. Like, you got to wake up and decide to do that, right? It doesn't happen naturally. And so I believe that, for instance, when we had the last special session, when it came to fossil fuel industry, and it was in the middle of our break, many of us volunteered to be on that special committee, that select committee. And we actually really had some tough but reasonable discussions. I really enjoyed the amount of detail we went into, the amount of debate we had. I was actually proud of that, that we had some very tough discussions, but still found a way to cover the subject matter and not demonize people.
There are some programs that state has that went into law. You mentioned CARB. CARB has been going in this direction because the legislature told them to go this direction. There is another program, Cap and Trade, that you've been looking into. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, it is now time to decide whether we are going to renew California's Cap and Trade program. Cap and Trade is a complex program that basically says that if you are having emissions that exceed a certain amount, you have to pay for the amount of emissions that you are doing. And if you pay for it, or if you're under your emissions, you can actually sell credits to people who need credits in order to be able to meet the law of California. And through that buying and selling, a fund which is called the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Fund, GGRF, we can now have a pot of money that goes towards technology and other programs to help people pay for the more expensive technology, or also go towards more development of new technology as well. And so all the data suggests the Cap and Trade program is the single most effective emissions reduction program that California has. It's actually worked.
But doesn't that increase the cost too? Because those people that are making more emissions, then they will pass the cost to us as the consumers when they have to buy.
In the beginning, yes, if they don't continue to innovate and find ways to drive down their own emissions. I think that sometimes it costs money to have more cleaner air, right? But I think overall it's a net positive. Now remember, through the funds that are being generated, our number one goal now is how do we send some of those funds back to the consumer who may be charged more. So maybe now they get a discount on their electricity bill, a credit. Maybe now they get an opportunity to have a rebate for a more fuel efficient vehicle. The community now has access to be able to install EV chargers in their homes, or essential funds to pay for that electric stove or that electric water heater that needs to be replaced. So we are trying to find ways to make sure that consumers themselves are benefiting from Cap and Trade in a more tangible way, that they actually see their own overall costs go down.
When do you think that would happen? Is that going to be soon?
The goal is to try to get it done by the end of this session, by September 12th. So the value of Cap and Trade is that you're also adding a financial incentive to be able to drive down your emissions. So not only are you not just worried about your everyday business practices, but if you know that by driving down your emissions, you can actually, instead of having to buy credits, you can actually sell those credits. Now it becomes another stream of income. And when we talk to folks who are part of the Cap and Trade companies, they really see it as a win-win to be able to participate in that. And then, of course, we're trying to make sure that not only do businesses win, but the consumer wins as well, which is why we have the GGRF fund to be able to collect that revenue and then be able to send it back to them. That will be more meaningful in terms of their cost of living.
In terms of housing, there's all these laws that are passing, right, that you guys have been doing. It was the one of the big ones was the CEQA reform.
Yes.
How difficult was to do that? Because now the unions are not involved, and a lot of times these kind of laws, it would always be prevailing wages. Was it difficult to pass?
No doubt, it was definitely difficult to pass, which is why it was done through our budget process, and which is why it took the governor to lean in to make it a priority to be done. I think that at the end of the day, the status quo is not acceptable, and I wish we would have had more time to be more deliberative about it. I'm sure there will be some unintended consequences that we're going to have to clean up a little later. But overall, I believe that we are headed in the right direction. We all know that we're overregulating the building of housing. Are we changing the right regulations? We will find that out soon, right? But I think overall, it was the right thing to do. To solve big problems, take hard decisions. And sometimes you even have to tell your friends that, we're going to have to go in a different direction. There's still some cleanup probably to do because it was done in a rushed way. But I understood the reason why leadership wanted us to do it.
So there's another side to the cost of living, is also the incomes and businesses thriving in California. And some companies are deciding to leave or not come. And then there's some jobs, if you look at California, we have some jobs that are paying well. If you're a PhD and you're working for a biotech company and you make $250,000 a year, or you have a track to make 150, 200, you're fine. But if you are a manufacturing worker, or if you're in the service side of things, if you're the restaurant space, it's not easy. And some of these businesses are deciding to leave.
I think overall, the announcements that you've seen that businesses are leaving, in the most case, like In-N-Out or like Tesla, they're not moving their operations out of the state. They're moving their headquarter building out of the state, but they're still doing business in California, right? I think it's mostly more of a symbolic thing that we have an issue with the way California is regulating things. And I think it's a fair argument. But overall, the amount of businesses that are being created in California, there's a reason why we're still the fourth largest economy in the world. You don't do that if you have a lot of businesses leaving. But that doesn't mean that we can't be hyper vigilant. I was in the nonprofit sector before I went to the legislature. And there were still a lot of regulations that I had to deal with to be able to do business in California. So I understand some of the challenges of the balance sheet, of providing health care, of paying the employment tax. All of those things we have to take into consideration. But we are getting to a tipping point where we have to be very cautious in terms of what we're doing with our minimum wage and other things, because I believe at this point it actually can have adverse effects. And there may be some trade-offs. You may have higher paying jobs, but you may have less jobs available. Which one would you rather have? If you play Survivor and you're the last one standing, you're happy. But what about the three other people who now have no employment opportunity? And so there's a balancing act that we have to continue to try to figure out here. But I think we're getting to the tipping point because we've done a lot of things when it comes to minimum wage for fast food workers, a minimum wage for healthcare workers, and of course the overall minimum wage that's now about $16 and something cents. We just have to be careful and be more thoughtful and making sure that it's not just the shiny thing to do, but is it the best thing to do for the long term?
You guys are paying a lot of attention to cost of living. We've heard from many of your colleagues at the legislature. Is there a similar attention to this side of things on the business side, businesses, and regulation?
Yes and no. I would say, yes, obviously, especially when it comes to the fossil fuel industry and others, we're looking at what regulations do we need to fix to make it easier to continue to stay and do business. Regulation is a broad term, and so there's still some bad actors out there that we, from time to time, need to plug up some holes. I think that our technology sector, our AI sector, there's a lot of debate on what is the appropriate amount of regulations versus innovation, and how do we make sure that they can coexist together. And so, we're the California legislature. We have over 2,000 bills every year. There's someone with an idea to put a restriction on something. But I think overall, we should make sure that we're only doing what is necessary to protect people, protect people's information, protect people's mental health, protect people's physical health as well. Anything outside of that, we need to be very cautious right now. We are, there's no doubt we're one of the most regulated states. Are all of it necessary? Probably not. But that's also a problem with term limits. That when you come in, you have no clue all the other things other people have done in the past. All you have is your bright idea, right? And so sometimes we don't recognize that we're just layering on top of. We also should be equally focused on what regulations don't we need anymore? Or can we make less stringent now that we have more data available to us?
So does that get looked at, the regulations that already exist? Is there a way for you guys to look at them and see these are the laws in this space, and if you're going to add another law, then there's 20 other ones?
Not often, but right now, in the energy space, we're definitely looking at that. In the housing space, we're definitely looking at that. In the insurance space, we're definitely looking at that. And even in our homelessness space, right? The type of regulations that we have for the type of housing, the type of programs and those type of things. When you look at the most pressing issues of the day, we are having those thoughtful discussions about what's necessary, what's not necessary, how can we make things easier, how can we make things less stringent.
Before we move on to the rest of this interview, we want to show you some headlines from the Epoch Times this week's California section. There is a big battle between Trump administration and UCLA. Trump administration is saying there's racism, anti-Semitism. They don't agree with their transgender policies when it comes to athletes. As a result of this, Trump administration has cut UCLA's research fund by $324 million. There was a judge order saying that Trump administration needs to give some of this research money back. Street takeovers in LA have become a major problem for the city. And sometimes people are taking the streets over, they're doing donuts, and then they go to auto zones and attack these stores and rob them and vandalize them. Now, District Attorney of LA, Nathan Hochman, has come up with some harsh punishment for the spectators. They could face up to 190 days in jail or face $500 fine, or both of them. We have an article about California Energy Commission's effort to keep the refineries in California. A couple of refineries have announced that they want to leave California, and this would put 20% of California's gasoline under risk. So California Energy Commission has been working very hard to get everybody together, make sure they do whatever they can to keep these refineries so that we don't have an energy shock. This is just a few headlines in our print edition. We have many, many headlines on California, national stories, and beyond. And they're balanced. There are multifaceted issues. Some of these stories are not reported anywhere else. You can just try the paper for a month, and we have a special deal for you. There's a link below. It's $1 a week for the first month. Make sure you try it and let us know what you think. Based on what you guys are seeing, you're working on, what do you envision the future of California to be?
Wow. It depends on what decisions we make right now. If we keep going down this road, we're setting up the next generation for failure. It'll be hard to survive in California. And it'll be more and more impossible for the next generation to be able to have home ownership in their own right. If we don't create a 21st century path for opportunity for the next generation, to make sure that they have a whole host of what we call in the helping profession a multi, social determinants of health, making sure you have access to the right education, safety, environment, employment. If we don't get those things right, then we should be apologizing to the next generation. And all the data suggests that for the last 5 to 10 years, these are the generations that will be, for the first time, not do better than their parents. So we're talking about centuries of human existence. And we are the first generations to not set up the next generation for success. Shame on us for doing that and not understanding what we need to do. Path of opportunities don't just happen. They're designed. So when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was 18 in the year 2000. I probably still was an adult at that time. I still needed some more time to grow up. But we knew and we were taught that this is how much you need to make a year. These are the type of jobs that you're probably going to have to get into. This is the type of education that you're probably going to have. And if you do that and you put your head down and you shut up and don't talk back, then one day you will get the income and the job that you need so you can buy your own home and take care of your family. It was a blueprint that was laid out for us. That same blueprint is becoming less and less reliable now. Why? Technology is moving at lightning speed. The economy continues to shift a lot faster. Before, economies didn't maybe shifted every 20, 30 years? We're talking about every 5 years now, economies are shifting so fast. So what does that mean for the next generation? How can we put create more roadmaps so that young people know how to make it here in California? And we haven't designed that yet. And if we don't design that quickly, it's going to, California will no longer be the Golden State.
What does it take to design that?
Well, the playbook has already been written. We know that, number one, we need young people to have the type of personal capital, social capital, financial capital, to be able to do those things. What does that really mean in everyday language? It just means that, number one, we need to make sure that young people are leaving our schools literate, able to read and write effectively, efficiently, and able to have the basics of math and science and those type of things. We also know we need to make sure that they have regular access to fruits and vegetables and physical activity, making sure that they're healthy. And then we need to make sure that they have the opportunity to decide what they want to do for their careers and have the type of training to help them get there. In the 90s, we had a big shift to higher education. That pendulum is swinging back now to trades because we have a huge exodus and retirement of people in the trades that now we need to replenish. So whether it's robust trades, and the governor's doing a good job of trying to create those trades back up, we need to make sure that higher education becomes more affordable than it is now. People should not be saddled with debt. And then when they finally get the job that they want, they can't buy a home because they're still paying off that humongous debt. And then we need to make sure that we are breaking cycles of poverty and violence, which are destabilizing factors and have ripple effects in the negative sense towards being able to have a life and be able to thrive in a healthy way. And so we have to set up all those systems or redesign all those systems again to make sure that they're working right and that they're not becoming more of a burden. Because now young people are thinking what you say is a good thing. The math ain't mathing out right now. The benefit is not outweighing the cost when they start looking at some of the opportunities that we're trying to push them to do. So how do we make it easier? How do we provide more incentives? And how do we provide them with more financial support to be able to do those things?
Assemblymember Corey Jackson, it was great to have you, California Insider.
Thank you for having me.
Let us know what you think about the situation in California with cost of living. Do you think policies are causing this? And do you think California can change that? You can always email us at siyamak@californiainsider.com or comment. We read all of your emails and comments. I'm Siyamak Khorrami. This is California Insider. We'll see you next time.